Hello.
Hello. Welcome. Thank you for coming back in today.
Yeah, of course. I kind of had something, I guess, kind of a source of stress, maybe confusion, though more accurately. Uh
Okay.
yeah, I've been getting back to my old habits, my old sort of I don't want to say coping mechanisms, but I guess more like interests and things like that.
hmm
And I know that, you know, if you want to watch a good movie, you go to the French, right?
I mean, famously, I guess they're sort of the cinema verte.
Yeah. The very cinema. That's
Yeah,
them.
the very most cinemas, I think, is what they call themselves.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
Cineast. That's French.
yeah. Directorio intente.
Yeah, that's French.
That's French. Yeah.
That's 100% French. Well, I mean, yeah,
Auteur theory,
yeah,
coming from the French word for asshole.
yeah, precisely.
Yeah.
Everybody has an auteur, like an opinion or whatever the fuck. Uh, Yeah, France, known as the birthplace of cinema, the Lumiere brothers, Jean Cocteau, of course, Breathless, Jean-Luc Godard,
Yeah, one of your favorite films.
famously one of my favorite films. Uh, but I don't know. I don't know if they have it anymore. I don't know if the spark's still there. I don't know. I Maybe France has fallen out of love with the 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 art of cinema.
Well, it's sort of the thing of like some people are fine staying in their hometown, and some people just kind of like stagnate.
Uh-huh.
So it makes sense that if you go back to the birthplace of cinema, but it didn't really go anywhere. You're
Mm,
you're basically saying that seeing the art house film equivalent of like your high school English co-ed who works at a Fry's Electronics now,
uh-huh.
uh, and is married to a girl plus or minus 9 years younger than him, or plus or minus 9 years in age difference to him, who has three kids regardless of the situation.
Right. Pulling a pulling a bit of a Dane Cook situation. Well, I mean,
Yeah,
pulling an any famous man situation.
yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean it's troubling. Like if France and French speaking people can fall out of love with cinema, then what's to stop me from falling out of love with anything in my life? And it's just, it's such a scary prospect. Maybe I should slow down. Maybe I should calm down.
Yeah. Well, what films, what French films did you watch recently that have you on this kind of thought train?
I did a bit of a double feature of
Oh,
two
I believe
works.
in French they call that uh le ménage à trois.
Yeah, that's the word for it. That's it. I did a ménage à trois with deux movies. One of them in French and one of them in a bunch of different languages. The two new Claire Denis features, Stars at Noon, and Both Sides of the Blade, formerly known as Fire, I guess.
Yeah, two films technically kind of released at the end of 2022, but like now in theaters somewhere sometimes.
Yeah.
Very very strange distribution cycle both these films have been going through. One of them was on Hulu, I guess.
I guess.
I
I
don't
mean,
use
fuck it,
Hulu. I don't
right?
know. Yeah.
That's kind of the thing about movie distribution now. It's like a gift of the magi thing where it's just like passes through all of these different distribution models, different websites that just happen to have it at different points. It's kind of nonsensical.
So my understanding from looking at this is that because I have to make sure which one. So Stars at Noon was an A24 joint, or was released by A24.
Yes.
Basically is the Hulu exclusive Claire Denis film, which is a horrifying concept.
Yeah. Troubling.
But is not actually been released in France yet.
Kind of fucked up.
Despite being a French film.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, Both Sides of the Blade, I think that's the one that's currently like in theaters locally. Like it's like playing at AMC theaters but it was initially released as an AMC streaming.
That's
like you could buy it like AMC on demand.
That to me is nonsensical.
Right? And previously it had a very limited film run by IFC. This is part of the reason why I was really confused and having trouble keeping track of them, is because both of them were released roughly in the same couple of months at the end of 2022, but like with wildly different distribution models, and one of them had its name changed like halfway through.
Yeah, definitely a kind of interesting, an interesting arc there, an interesting story for that film to go through.
I don't know if this is like Claire Denis in her like flop era, or like Claire Denis in her like fuck it era. Like, let's just crank these out while she's working on like her next big film.
Yeah. Let's just do it like an anthology series or something. She's shooting her films like the Avatar sequels, where they're all being shot at the same time.
This is her doing the throat exercises for her movies.
Yeah.
Like the pandemic really kind of like put a cramp in her style, and she's like, let's just do like an easy one.
Yeah.
And that easy one was called Both Sides of the Blade.
Yeah, starting off with Both Sides of the Blade. I don't know. Did you get a chance to see this film? Check it out.
I did. In fact, I just watched it yesterday. Believe it or not.
Wow, that's crazy. Me too.
And I could tell you like basically nothing that happened in that film. Claire Denis has like a really interesting approach to film, where the first hour of it, I don't know if she's just assuming that people are going to be getting late to the theater, but like just nothing happens in the first hours of her films now. Or I guess that's unfair. What happens in the first hour of the film is just, this movie is like an hour of just, oh, but my ex will be there. Oh, I can't see my ex.
Yeah.
Oh, but he'll be there. Oh, but isn't it weird? Oh, it's not weird. Oh, but he's my ex, and he'll be there, and he'll be there and I'll be there, and I'll see my ex, who will be there, and that's so weird.
It took like 200 years to kind of like set up and like get through the sort of basic world building of, what was being kind of presented. And
then like the second that starts, like she sees her ex, she like just fucking like beeline straight into his personal space.
Yeah.
No mask, takes her mask off, face to face.
No, literally their faces are like 6 inches from each other. Like they do this intimate staring contest with each other that is kind of hilarious and confounding.
Especially after, I cannot emphasize this enough, an hour of this like bizarre heterosexual ritual around seeing your ex at a work at your partner's fucking like work party, like the least possible threatening environment to see your ex in.
Yeah. Do you think it is going to be weird if you are working with my ex at your job where you work? I don't know. I feel horrible about this. Yeah, it's kind of like nonsensical. It's a very we have a term around here that we use called fringding. I probably shouldn't expose the masses to fringding, but fringding. If you want to know what fringding means, just think about the Grant Kirkhope Banjo-Kazooie soundtrack, and now conceptualize that as a human interaction, and then you arrive at what we call fringding. Fringding has many uses and definitions, but
it's
the easiest way to describe.
That is the best way to describe it. I would also put fringding in the same category as like putting two Furbies in a room.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the shit they say to each other.
That's fringding. Listen, Susan Sontag, get off camp. We're on fringding now.
Fuck you. Camp is dead. Fringding is here to stay.
Famously, Bruce LaBruce has said that camp is dead. Fringding is where it's at.
I will say, I think Meeks came up with fringding.
That's a Meeks phrase. I remember Meeks is the one who started saying that constantly at Ghost Planet.
Yeah, shout out to Meeks Tape, Meeks and Poke on Twitter. Go get
great
a
tattoo artist. Yeah, if you are ever in the Greater Pacific Northwest area. Book yourself a tattoo, and you'll get to meet the world famous Romeo.
That's so true, Romeo. I'm gonna put a picture of Romeo.
Romeo, the wingless bat.
100%. Yeah. So it kind of. It progresses so melodramatically. I don't know if you felt this way, but I really felt as though I was watching some kind of, like, soap opera.
Yeah.
Like a cheap soap opera.
Yeah. No, that's what I think was so weird about it, is that it's like... It's still a Claire Denis film, so it's like... There's a lot of good emphasis on, like, body language and stuff, but it's in the service of just like the cheapest, like most boring, like human drama. Yeah. And I love like just a simple human drama.
Mm-hmm.
But this is like third season Moral Oral. It does this better.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. I just can't get invested. And then there's all these other like elements to the story that like ostensibly seem much more interesting, but like the film doesn't really care as much.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's the stuff with their son, which I don't know. I kind of appreciated that the film was being very, very obvious about the fact that this guy is like. Vincent Lindon's character has a very sort of black and white view of morality, literally, where he spends, there's this whole scene of him like lecturing his black son about the way that he conceptualizes race and how race plays into like, you know, how you're treated shittier by society. And he's like, oh, you just feel sorry for yourself, and you need to go back to school, and you need to think about what you're going to be doing with your life. Just this horrible, like the type of conversation that you have when you're an adolescent, but kind of made worse by being the black son of a white father in so many ways. Like that was one of the best scenes because it was so illuminating about like Vincent Lindon's character's whole thing. And how he fucking treats people.
Very illuminating, and also Marcus played by Issa Parika. I don't know if he's been in anything else, but he's the one who plays. He's the actor who plays his son.
Yeah.
Does just like a really, really good like detached teen.
Uh-huh.
like where he was in the 2019 Les Mis film. That's funny.
Yeah. I was gonna say Les Mis.
Where it's like that kind of like simmering resentment, but has just like so accepted and been disinvested from it anymore that it's not even really resentment anymore.
Yeah.
There's this like passive like, oh, if I was more emotionally invested in like this dynamic, like it would be hostile, but I'm just so beyond that anymore that it's just like apathy. Just he carries that through him with him in like every scene.
Right.
And it's great because you can see that he has such a different way in which that embodies with Vincent than with his grandmother, who I think is Nellie. Is that her name?
Yes.
I believe it's Nelly. Yeah. Where there's still obviously a bit of touch of tenderness there, but still a degree of like keeping her at arm's length because it's just like, well, he's just like, you're just not gonna get it. Like you just don't get what I'm going through.
Yeah, absolutely.
Both in the typical teen boy way, and also in the way of like, he's like, okay, but literally, he's like, you're the white half of my family. Like you actually literally do not get it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I don't know, like it is only so interesting to watch. I love Juliette Binoche. I'm also tentatively love Vincent Lindon. I also love Madi Diop, who had a very small bit part in this, who was the director of Atlantics, which is a great movie. If there's anything to get out of this episode, it's go watch Atlantics, because that movie's fucking fantastic. But
yeah, did we figure out who she was supposed to be in that scene? Like what her relationship is supposed to be? Like, is she supposed to be the mom or is she the social worker?
I don't fucking remember. I don't think she's the social. I think the social worker is a completely different thing. I don't fucking remember. I don't know who Gabrielle is supposed to be. But I don't know. Maybe a friend. But yeah, it's really only so interesting to kind of see like the will I or won't I drama of Juliette Binoche deciding between her ex and her current husband, because it progresses somewhat nonsensically, which is maybe part of the point.
Yeah, but
it was also hard to that made it kind of hard to grasp onto the sort of meat of what the movie was and what it was kind of about, I guess.
Yeah, no, I am someone who is never who tries not to be the like, oh, well, this isn't about people like me, so like I just bounced right off of it.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But it's just too straight. It's just like there's just so many assumptions about the way like relationship dramas work that the film has bundled into it, that as I was watching it, I just kept like being like, okay, but why? Like, why? Like, what am I? Why are they reacting this way? And I have to kind of like put myself into the mindset of like people who live like this.
Yeah.
And a good film can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And this one did not. So,
I mean,
draw your own conclusions from that.
The most I can say is that we have this outline of Vincent Lindon's character who just like wants people to produce goodness for him in a way where like that really long conversation scene with his son, like he gets so obsessed with that stuff because he wants to feel better about himself because he feels like shit all the time, I guess. After being like important aspects of his character, he's like an ex-con and a former rugby player and like all of this stuff, so he has like a very kind of simplified view of like success and happiness and things of some such nature. So when the film, I guess, is almost a denouncement of that heterosexual sort of sphere of thought where it's like your wife has to produce fidelity for you, in this sort of X generation feminist way of like Juliette Binoche, really, her character has a lot kind of hanging on her, as far as just like bringing home this sense of security and happiness. That, you know, Jean, it's not the most fair for him to make the demands that he's making, and for him to fly into, like, he's constantly like flying into a uncontrollable rage that she's having to like remind him, like, hey, you're not actually calm right now. You keep saying you're calm, but you're not calm. You know, and
Yeah.
the background simmering of like, oh, he's like an ex-con. He's kind of scary a little bit. I don't know. It's
Ex-con has some also is like a has like a history in sports, which is why he ends up in the business with Francois.
yeah, absolutely. Which, you know, it's hard to read Francois's motives as well. I mean, like, Francois also seems very like kind of annoyingly patriarchal in the sense that he kind of goes behind the back of this woman and is also like, oh, she's the one who fucked up, even though I'm the one who like was like, hey, I want to fuck, hey, I want to fuck, hey, I want to fuck, hey, I want to fuck. You wanted to fuck too? Got your nose. I'm gonna tell your husband now.
Let me just grind it on your butt.
let me touch your butt. Let me put my pentis on your butt.
Your butt. Oh, you want me to stay? Naughty, naughty.
Naughty, naughty. Yeah, like that. Definitely, you know, saying something about patriarchy, saying something about, you know, women's roles and things like that. The only major problem is it kind of went through this drama in a very sanded down, kind of boring way. And I don't know.
I remember about halfway, well, a little over halfway through, I was just like, man, at least like Marriage Story gave me characters that like were fun to hate.
Yeah.
Like, fuck Marriage Story. That movie, I hated that film.
Definitely
but
a worse film.
Yeah, definitely a far worse film, but that kind of caused it to loop back around of like able to like invest more in it because I just wanted to see what stupid shit it did next. This is just, that's why I said earlier at the start, it's like, I wonder if these are just like the warm-up exercises films, because it just feels very trite, feels too condemnatory, rote. It feels very rote for a Claire Denis film.
Right. Yeah, it's well trod ground as far as just the heterosexual infidelity concerns that are largely misogynist. I mean, if it helps anybody kind of you know, go into their mind palace about those things, then maybe that's ultimately a good thing. But I mean, you know, it won a bunch of fucking European Film Festival awards, in spite of not being the most interesting stylistically or otherwise. But
it did give us that really funny sequence that looked like it was filmed on an iPhone.
Yeah, there was a bunch of stuff that felt very obviously filmed on a smartphone, for sure. Which was crazy, like, because the footage didn't look good at all. It was like Vincent Lindon and fucking Grégoire Colline doing this like doing this like prep work essentially for their deal or whatever. And then some kind of after credit stuff of Vincent coaching a team. It all looked very goofy, and that's another aspect of the movie that I really struggled with. It didn't look very interesting, which is like, a movie doesn't have to look super interesting. You don't have to fucking make a statement every single goddamn time. But I don't know. It helps when the drama is so, you know.
Yeah, no, it's especially weird because it's when you compare it to like another film Claire Denis also made in the pandemic. Which, before we move on to that, I want to say that another great contrast between the second film and the pandemic film is I kept having moments in watching this one where I was just like, do the French know what the mask is for? Because there
Yeah.
kept being scenes where a character would be wearing their mask outside, go into a small room with other people, and then take their mask off. And it's like, what? That's like the opposite.
Yeah.
I assumed that was just like a necessity of filming under COVID, but it adds such a bizarre degree. It just adds like a bizarre human tick to all of the characters' behaviors, where they're wearing masks in situations where like they don't really have to, but then taking their masks off literally the second in which you would want to actually be having a mask on, if the purpose of wearing the mask is prevention of like disease spread.
There was a scene in Both Sides of the Blade with Juliette Binoche where she was talking to Francois that made me laugh so fucking hard, where like she literally like he showed up next to her and I don't know if it was between her and Francois or some other character, but like someone comes up to her and is like a couple of inches from her face with their mask on, and she like pulls her mask down while like 2 inches from this person's face.
It's so funny. No, it's that I remember that was the one that just made me snap, where it's like that is like that is the opposite of the situation in which you wear your mask. If like the point of wearing a mask in this scene is that is a COVID prevention thing.
Yeah. Fucking for real. Like it's I don't know. I mean it's funny. I found it very funny at the end of the day. I mean, like, it's funny of her to make 2 films that are, like, strictly speaking about the pandemic. I mean, like, there was a lot of stuff. I mean, seeing kind of how other countries dealt with the pandemic was definitely eye-opening. I mean, France, I don't know. I think everybody else is a little bit in the future in comparison to America. Like, Nicaragua, well, I guess it wasn't actually shot in where it said it was shot, but Stars at Noon showed off a bunch of like insane technology that would never ever fly here, you know?
Temperature checks.
Yeah.
Like literally just temperature checks that aren't a receptionist holding up a fucking surface cooking temp.
Yeah. Like
thermometer.
Here's a worker you can scream at if you need to like feel really, really angry about needing your temperature checked before you enter a building. Here's someone you can abuse. Because that's the American way, you know?
Yeah, the most bizarre part about that is definitely the like is the fact that like, and then she also had Stars at Noon, which also is a COVID film.
Yeah.
And also I would argue has a weird not great depiction of like a relationship that you're necessarily invested in, but it's just like a more compelling film.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, the best place to start with regard to Stars at Noon is Margaret Qualley's character, who is insane. She's so fucking good. She is like a complete piece of shit to absolutely everybody. She sucks for sure. But that's what makes her great.
Yeah. No, God, let me pull it up. I always want to call her Maggie, but it's not Maggie. It's Margaret. Margaret Qualley, right?
Margaret Qualley.
Yeah, Margaret Qualley. Yeah. Her character, just like from the jump, they do such a good job of making it clear that she fucking sucks. And like the movie just like really kind of slowly makes you like enjoy watching her, but doesn't ever really change the fact that she just sucks.
Yeah.
And it's not like an endearing suck. It's a like, wow, you are a nightmare.
I mean, she goes through this very small sort of, I mean, actually, I don't even know what I'm saying, because she definitely was sarcastic when she was hanging out with Benny Safdie's character and says, like, please for the first time or something like that. So fucking funny. She is totally impudent and terrible, and I loved watching every second of her. There's a point at which she, like, screams at a police officer in his face. She like takes off her mask and shit and like starts screaming in his face mid-pandemic, and then she like runs outside and she's like, America's gonna fucking completely destroy this country. Our tanks are gonna come and we're gonna flatten you.
The scene where she's with Daniel, the other main character, and he's like, "Oh yeah, you know, like I'm kind of interested in the election." And she's like, "You think there's gonna be an election?" Just like, oh my god, dude, like you don't know, like this is like an authoritarian government, you know that, right?
Yeah.
Just like the way she just like is laughing at like the I am an American in a country that America is actively doing coup shit in.
Yeah, I mean, you know, to be fair, she knows the score.
Yeah, no, she is correct. She's proven correct.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. This movie was it was just a lot meatier. It had a lot more going on with it. I think critics are a little bit harsher on it. But I at least, you know, was able to pay much closer attention to it because it wasn't just this kind of heterosexual bickering the entire time. I mean, there was plenty of heterosexual bickering, but it was about things that had less to do with, you know, being het and more to do with geopolitical goings on and the CIA.
It also uses like the pandemic to more of an effect where you understand it as like, okay, this is something that makes crossing borders and like free movement of people through nation states much more difficult. The ways in which it kind of opportunistically provides a way for the nation states to consolidate power. And I like that all this stuff is just kind of like backgrounded almost, and that like you end up feeling a lot like Trish, where it's just like, well, fuck it, that's the way fucking things are. Haha, this fucking sucks. I'm just gonna drink a shitload of rum and run around in the ugliest dress that appears to be like a fucking tote bag.
Yeah.
And just hideous nylon like string panties.
It must be mentioned, her styling is fucking hilarious for the entire movie. Like, she looks terrible. She's just wearing these like Ross Dress for Less outfits. This like thin ass like black hoodie with like rhinestones all over it, and just all like pattern apron dresses, all like pattern skirts.
There's a part where she puts on a hideous like hideous heart like pattern skirt, and then like a hideous like graphic like all over print pattern shirt. And not only are they both individually ugly, but together they like clash in the worst way. And that's like the second outfit she puts on. Yeah, it is just so funny how she is styled to just emphasize how much she sucks. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean,
there's like entire sequences where it's like her skin looks really bad. Her hair is just like fucked up. And I think what I like about it is that like normally in a lot of films, it'll be like they'll be like, okay, we're gonna emphasize that they look like shit in the scene, but it's a very stylized looks like shit. But this is like, no, this is, I've been sleeping on like the worst bed in the worst hotel, and I am wearing like the most picked out of a garbage fucking outfits that I could find. I am wearing technically clothes.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's so like clothes pulled from a garbage bag that she was just handed one day. And you know, let's not forget Joe Alwyn, who spends the entire movie in the same white blazer that just gets more and more fucked up. Really a pure white suit that is like covered in dirt and grime and blood by the end of the movie. Oh my god. That's just another spectacular touch.
Also great how he kind of plays this like, oh, like I'm this like mysterious businessman, and then it's just as the movie goes on, it's just more and more that it's like, okay, yeah, he's involved in something suspicious and like some sort of conspiracy, but is like way in over his head.
Yeah.
And like just does not know what the fuck he is doing here. Is like actually kind of stupid.
Oh, you're working for an oil company, huh? All right. I see ya. I see ya.
It's so funny that it's like you realize she thought he was like an intelligent asset, and then it kind of becomes clear that he is, but he's like not aware that he is. Like he's aware that like he basically is just like he's like an old money industry, like an oil industry version of like a Bitcoin guy. Like a guy who like thinks he's like being really sly and slick and clever, and it's like, oh, you don't know that like you're the one holding the bag. You're not getting the bag.
Yeah.
You're holding the bag.
You're the fall guy, dude. Yeah, it's a very sweaty movie. They sweat ridiculously. And not just because they're fucking.
And they do fuck. The first scene she has sex with someone in when she's sleeping with the Nicaraguan policeman, right? He's like a police.
Yeah, he's kind of a cop.
Like a cop of some type. And they're just like fucking like 2 inches from a fan because it's so hot. And they're just so sweaty and disgusting. And he's just like, oh, you're not purring. And she's just like, yeah, I'm not.
Yeah, her hating the sex that she has with that guy is, God, what a performance. What a spectacular. I don't know.
She gives a great performance. She definitely brought in her crying tech from the Kojima game she was on, where it's just like a single tear that just like appears adjacent to her eye.
Yeah, the Death Stranding acting school. Do you want to briefly touch on the John C. Reilly jump scare? There's not too much to say about it. He does a Zoom call with Margaret Qualley, where he basically is like, hey, we never hired you, actually. You were just doing, like, some temp work for us.
You asked for a bunch of money to go to this country and then wrote a bunch of articles about, like, murder, about, like, political murders and terrorism for our magazine that is telling rich people places to go to sit in a jacuzzi.
Like, which is hilarious.
So, it's so funny how so early, like, they do a really good job of establishing, related to the fact that she sucks, that like she's not a journalist. She has delusions of being a journalist. She has like some journalist instinct, but she actually like has like dog shit instinct on everything else.
Yeah, she has really bad impulses. I mean, the whole thing the movie is about, like, is as soon as she gets involved with this like this British fall guy, her like subteniente that's like helping her, as well as like the vice minister that's helping her, they both like back off from her because she falls in love with this British man. It's, I don't know, like I'm not saying I would be any different in this situation, but it's definitely like it's a funny character. Her decision making is very, very funny.
Every like move she tries to make, that just does not only does not like, it doesn't even, because it backfires, but it doesn't backfire on her. It just keeps being like, oh, we killed this taxi driver. Oh, we blew up this guy's car. Oh, we shot these like traffickers. Like just like constantly just like, you can keep doing this, but like we're just gonna keep forcing you towards like what we want you to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was another sort of complaint about the film, is definitely that like a bunch of brown people get fucking killed for these white people. Like, they meet a taxi driver and he gets basically, murdered for helping them essentially.
Yeah, despite him just not knowing that they were like wanted in any way. He's just a guy. He's just a taxi driver.
And the traffickers getting shot to death and all of this other stuff. I don't know. I know that Claire Denis, she was kind of raised in multiple different countries in Africa, Burkina Faso, Cameroon, French Somaliland, Senegal. So she kind of has this perspective as someone who grew up in West Africa. So I'm not saying the disposability of non-white people is not a salient statement in some capacity, but
Yeah,
I guess it sucks.
It's the thing of like, it feels a little too close to like the sort of Breaking Bad disposability of non-white characters.
Yeah.
Even if like the film is trying to like lampshade that through how much these main characters suck and like make it clear how much that like this is an extension of like the grander political conspiracy that they're involved in, and also the like grander behavioral traits they have of just kind of exploiting people around them to cover up for their own fuck ups and like shortcomings.
Yeah. Like at the end of the day, you are in a country that is experiencing a CIA coup, and you are part of the American machine and the British machine. It's I don't know, like it's.
Speaking of, God, I wish Benny Safdie was in this movie so much more.
He should have shown up way earlier.
He is like such a great inverse to Daniel's character in that he is the worst like at being covert. Just like she walks in and immediately is like, "You're CIA," and he's like, "I'm not saying I am. I'm just saying." It's like, "Shut the fuck up. You're the worst at this." But also like, unlike Daniel, like actually fucking knows what he's doing and like actually has power. I fucking lost my mind when she's getting the COVID test and he just walks in through the back of the tent. And it's just like, "Hey, I knew I'd find you here at the COVID test tent."
On the border where you're trying to escape to Costa Rica. It's fucking hilarious. Like, I mean, it's so on the nose that he doesn't even feel like he has to hide being a CIA agent at all.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't fucking care.
He has to do the plausible deniability thing, but that beyond that, it's like he's like, he doesn't care. Like he is protected enough by the state. He's actually protected by the state government and actually has like power in this situation that he only has to do the plausible deniability level of it. But that he doesn't fucking care about his cover being blown to like literally anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I also kind of appreciated the like myriad statements on sort of I guess like feminist statements about kind of how Trish, I don't know, this movie definitely has a very deep well of like feminist thought in terms of like her being kind of a shit character because she's treated like shit and she's navigating the system in, the way that a woman kind of has to. She's kind of hustling her way through. She's being a little bit of what they refer to as a whore. But she's also, like, subject to all this kind of physical violence, and, like, a bunch of men kind of, like, hold her in these situations that are really scary and kind of compromising. Benny Safdie's character kind of included. Like, the CIA and the, like, CIA-affiliated, like, Costa Rican police, like, they feel very rapey in this movie, and that feels like such a statement.
Oh, absolutely. And also even the degree to which it's like she ends up losing that access because they find out that she's sleeping with other people, when it's like you are getting her to sleep with you via like extortion.
Yeah.
Like, you both want her to be this person that you have that power over, but also you want her to be like loyal to you in a way that does not reflect what the actual situation is, which is like very accurate to like that kind of exploitation.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely kind of a commonality with both sides of the blade as well, kind of in terms of themology. But Yeah, like it's so unrealistic. It's so patriarchal and bizarre.
Also really good. Big fan of like the fact that like when she makes a joke about it to the CIA agent, Benny Safdie's just like, "Oh, that's actually like the one thing I don't want."
Yeah.
Like he's like, no, actually, like I'm operating at a level of power here where like I don't need to worry about like petty interpersonal power, because I could just have you killed if I want.
Yeah, yeah, literally. Which, yeah, I don't know. It it weaves a complex little web. I wouldn't say I fell hard in love with either of these movies, but
No, they're both kind of afternoon movies, Saturday afternoon movies.
yeah,
Um, I feel like I definitely like Stars at Noon more than Both Sides of the Blade, but I just find interweaving this kind of stuff with like heavier political stuff more interesting. I feel like there's more denseness. I feel like if I revisit Stars at Noon, I'll get more out of it.
absolutely, yeah,
Um, it is very funny that it has uh kind of a weird opposite problem where it's like it's less believable that they're straight. Like they just don't really come off like the one scene where Margaret really like sells it is when she's wasted and he's like trying to get her into bed and she's just like, you're mad at me.
Are you mad at me? Are you mad at
Are you
me?
mad at me? And he's like, you drink like a fish and you sleep around and you're like and you're constantly drawing attention to us. He's like, but I'm not mad at you. And she's like, you're mad at me. The most relatable moment in the whole film.
Yeah, absolutely. That was beautiful. I like the rest of it. I kind of vibe with other people's sort of statements about the the lack of believability of their dynamic. And I guess this was originally that it was supposed to be Robert Pattinson playing that guy. And then
I could absolutely see it working way better if Robert Pattinson, honestly.
yeah,
Because Margaret is I think Margaret's carrying it. I think she's bringing the energy.
yeah,
It's just that Joel Alwyn is just like not. He just seems he seems a little like asexual with it.
yeah. I feel a little bit yes and no on that. Like I don't know, like I feel like it's a fundamental issue with the character. Like the character is, you know, he's this unwitting, dumb fall guy for this like deal that goes south and blah 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 blah. And he's also very kind of underspoken and he's very quiet and he's like a fish out of water. And in theory, that could work with a character like Margaret Qualley. But I don't know. I think as an audience member, I would like to see someone more her match and less. You know,
I could see because I forgot that he's also the dumb guy in The Favorite. I could see him playing like that guy being really good in this role, like somebody who's more obviously the dumb guy at the end of the conspiracy who thinks he's at the center of the conspiracy.
yeah, that would be cute at least.
I do also like that like ultimately she never gets an answer on who he is or like what his involvement in it really is.
Right.
There's that really good scene where she like calls out the name of like two. Especially like because again related to the fact that like she has some journalistic instincts, just dog shit other instincts. It's like it pretty consistently shows that she definitely knows who like all the big power like blocks in the country are. She knows what the dynamics are. She understands a lot of the teeming political undercurrent and like a good guess of like what the conspiracies at play are. But just like no sense otherwise of like how to navigate that.
Yeah. Well, she's like reliant on these kind of few connections that peter out and we're very like tenuous in the first place. And she's like flying without a seatbelt too because she like doesn't have her passport for the entire movie, and she's just like hoping that her pussy will carry her to safety. which is not the most unreasonable.
Every scene where she gets pissed off at the idea that she needs a passport is so funny. Okay, well, I need your passport to make this copy. No, you don't.
Why?
Why?
Dumbass.
So I don't get in trouble? No, do it anyway. What are you talking about?
Yeah, that stuff is really, really good. I don't know. Yeah, like, I
think it's just visually more striking, too, as a film.
Uh-huh.
I feel like the way she films our characters is a lot more evocative than it felt in both sides.
Yeah. Well, I think it benefits from a more interesting sort of environment. You know, the backdrop is more lush and more textured. So it's only gonna accentuate the sort of human drama, I guess I would say.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. You know, it really, I think that kind of answers the question of what French cinema needs.
Uh-huh.
Which is to get out of France.
Yeah, get the fuck out of France.
Get the fuck out of France.
Boring ass place. Fuck France. Fuck the French.
Fuck the French. Yeah, you know what? Fuck the French.
If you're French and you're hearing this, I don't know, you're probably actually fine. No, I'm just kidding. Fuck you.
Fuck you. Hey, I'm sorry if you're French. Sorry that you live in France.
Yeah, anyway, you know, high life better, Beau Travail better. What can you do? Speaking of, I think everyone in the world should watch Beau Travail. That's such a fucking amazing movie. You know, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about being like, this director. I don't think she's fallen off. I just think these were. She got a hair in her ass about the pandemic and about the state of things, and she wanted to make a couple of statements here. You know, covering those topics, and God bless her for it. If anybody's looking for a movie from France that's very, very good that just came out, Saint Omer is really, really good. I just wanted to come in here and kind of wax about that crud. I wanted to get that off my chest.
Yeah, no, get the. I think everyone has to eventually, kind of come to terms with France.
Yeah, and the role that it plays in our lives. You know, sometimes I don't know.
Hey, you know, it's now is always the perfect time to cut a toxic film industry out of your life.
You're so right. I think I've been just letting it, you know, take up mental real estate and take up space. And I need to just let it go. I need to let France go and live its own life. Eating fucking whatever gross shit they eat over there. I think it's time to give France a call. Hold on, I'm gonna make a call, a collect call to the entire country of France. I'm gonna go one by one, and you're okay with me doing that. You're okay with me doing that from your phone, right? If I just do that from your phone here in the office and just call all of France.
Yeah, no, I guess that's fine. Hold on, let me just. Oh, I broke it. I'm sorry.